Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Oscar Buzz. Trevor here, joined by Thomas, and today we're talking about Bradley Cooper's second directorial effort, Maestro. Follow-up to A Star Is Born, which you liked a lot more than
Yeah.
I did. And I think that we have similar takes on this one. You were a lot more taken by his latest work than I was. So let's get into it. So it's the biopic of Leonard Bernstein. It was a very big passion project for Bradley Cooper. I know the project went around to like Spielberg and Scorsese before it was passed on to him. And it looks pretty. It looks very
for
pretty.
sure.
I'll let you start.
Well, I think it is very apt that at the top of this you called this Bradley Cooper's Maestro. I think that is very an apt name for this because his face is all over it. And I mentioned in the stream yesterday, if you don't like the film, I imagine the reason is you don't like the direction. You don't like the direction he specifically took with it. Having said that, I was really quite taken by it. I think that the sort of whole dreamlike aspect that he creates of it, this idea that it is more just a vignette of different vignettes of this man's life rather than a sort of consistent tale, I think is perfect for capturing the sort of extent to which this man was a larger than life figure, was a, all of that kind of thing. And I think Bradley Cooper is so transformative in the film, where to the fact that you just don't notice it's him. You really don't, in my eyes at least. He just becomes this man just through physicality, through voice, through the prosthetics as well, which is all, obviously did deliver some controversy, but I think they do really work to sell us on the character, to be honest. So I'm not, and if they've given the blessing, like I think it's fine. So, but yeah, just everything about it just makes him this character, and he just is so able to embody it. And the 6 years, obviously people have made a meme of it, people have mocked it. I think it is on display though. I think that 6 years and that this preparation for the character, I think it is all display. I think we see the fruits of the labor, and so I think he just deserves so much credit for not being able to perform this role so perfectly, but be able to direct himself to such an extent and have this bold a vision for it's like his second film. This really does show a maturity, I think, in filmmaking, the way he was able to tackle this and the way he was able to approach this specific story.
I would like to see him direct something that he isn't acting in.
Could be interesting, yeah.
Because I wasn't that big of a fan of his performance in A Star Is Born, and his performance here, I can admire it, but it isn't really for me. What he's doing, it feels very maximalist, which feels kind of in direct opposition and contradiction with, as you said, the vignette and kind of stripped back nature of how the storytelling is supposed to feel. And it feels quite at odds because, like Sofia Coppola's doing in Priscilla, like the performances, they're all very stripped back, and the visuals, they're all very stripped back. Like there'll be sequences where it's just like Kaylee Spain like walking around the house by herself, and it's very quiet, and it feels like it is really capturing just like these brief glimpses and moments into Priscilla in Elvis's life. Whereas I think what didn't really work for me with Maestro is that Bradley, he's taking this approach where it's just like these vignettes, right? Which I do prefer over like the Wikipedia biopic. Like I like doing it like that way, of where it's just like we're looking at these vignettes, or like how Pablo Larraín constructed Jackie and Spencer, and where we just like look at these, like this one day or these couple of days. I think that's the most interesting thing, because if we're just going to learn about what they did in their life, like why if you're just going to inform, I think if we actually want to learn about who this person was, it can be through these vignettes. And I think I did appreciate that, and that's why I'm not super like I'd say more mixed than negative on Maestro. But whereas I feel that everything kind of married into like this perfect cohesion with Sofia Coppola's work with Priscilla, where everything met that thematic goal of just looking at the stripped back version and just almost like it was like this peek behind the curtain. Maestro felt like it wanted to do that, but their performances are so big, and the like the sweeping camera and the rapid cuts and all these types of things, like there would be moments where it is quieter, but then like some of the composition was really interesting because it like Like the frame would get very cluttered, and it felt like it was wanting to show like that there was like distance or stuff like that. But like I don't know, it all felt very kind of unmotivated to me, and just like going for the best visuals, which like, I mean, my fucking God, it looks beautiful. Like, I mean, you could frame any, any individual frame from this and you put it in a picture frame and it would look gorgeous on a wall. But like, I don't know, I felt like with how big in scope it wanted to feel, that felt in like with the performances, it felt so directly in contradiction with what he was wanting to thematically say, which I'm very theme driven with how I approach cinema. That's really how I think about film first and foremost, is what it's trying to say and how it's accomplishing that. And I appreciated the themes it was trying to go for, but I don't feel like the technical aspects were necessarily supporting or aiding in those thematic I guess ideas. I don't know.
Right, I would push back against a couple of things there. I think the point of a vignette sort of structured film is that we see the highs and the lows. We see these bigger moments with Bernstein, and then we see the smaller moments as well. And I think the performances, I think it's, harsh. I mean, it's justifiable potentially, but it's harsh to say that Bradley Cooper isn't doing both, isn't able to capture these smaller moments.
I will say, sorry, I liked Mulligan a lot.
Expressive. Yeah,
I liked Mulligan a lot. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Cooper's work. I really did enjoy Mulligan's performance. I thought that she was really good.
But yeah, I think Cooper's ability to go expressive in moments and yet to maintain the sense that he was just a person. We get the sense of him in these intimate moments. I think that is captured well. And I think through telling a vignette structure, we do need to almost have these bigger moments to keep us propelling through and to see then the effects of these bigger moments in the smaller moments. So it's about that. It's about that contradiction in a way, I would argue. And it's about this juxtaposition, because I don't think the stuff with Carey Mulligan would have worked as well if we didn't get a true sense, or at least the film didn't give us a true sense of Bernstein's appeal, of the magic of him. I think we needed those moments, so I think you do. I think it's going for a very different thing that Priscilla's doing. I think there is an element of the film which is trying to do this peek behind the curtain, smaller, intimate picture of a person, but I also think it is going for something else as well, and I think it achieves both of them through marrying both together quite well.
And I didn't feel that. I felt like a lot of moments really worked, but it didn't feel like a completed piece to me in a way that a vignette should. Like it should feel like these individual moments, but that they all are connected in some way thematically. And it didn't really feel like that. It felt like it was trying to go after a lot of different ideas that I don't like. I don't know. I came out of it not really knowing what I was supposed to make of it. Like I don't think that there is a thematic idea really behind this that it felt like the film was working towards. And obviously a film can have multiple different themes, but I feel like you need to develop them enough to where they still feel like they feel like actual themes, not like half-baked ideas.
I see. I would argue, though, that the sort of role of a biopic is to paint a portrait of a person. Like, that is the general rule of a biopic. And I think what this does well is it never loses track of the idea of Leonard Bernstein being a once-in-a-generation of talent, being this magical sort of, as I say, beyond extraordinary human. And I think you get a sense of that through Carey Mulligan's perspective as well. Like, it never loses sight of that. It's always about how she interacts with those aspects of his character, how she interacts with the almost inhuman at times nature of Bernstein. So I think there is a thematic chord there. I think there is a through line, and that comes from just painting this picture of Bernstein and showing us who he is, and showing us the magic and why he was so successful, why a biopic needed to be made about him in the first place. I think this is one that really does warrant its existence to that regard.
I guess we disagree. I feel like this film is caught in between two ideas that work. Like I feel like it doesn't know whether it wants to inform or whether it wants to paint a picture. And I feel like it's stuck there, and I feel like it's almost stuck between like I honestly think it would have been far more interesting if Carey Mulligan's character was like the sole protagonist.
Right. And see, this is where I disagree, because I think it's in the conflict of having Bradley Cooper and all of the bigger moments, and then the getting the stuff with Carey Mulligan, that this film really succeeds. I think it is in that juxtaposition. Whereas, like, and it's just doing a different thing to Priscilla. I think Priscilla was
and I'm not
aided
even
more
just
in many
talking
ways.
about Priscilla at this
Of
point.
course, but like it's a good point of comparison, I think, for this film.
Sure.
There are similar themes that it is going for. It is in many ways quite a similar film, but I think that was aided by the fact that Elvis is a much more recognizable figure. It's much easier to, like, we have perceptions of who Elvis is when he's big. Whereas this, it did need to sort of justify Bernstein's place in.
But I almost feel like it can become a more challenging film in that way. Like, this just felt like the most safe version of this you could have made, in a way. Like, beyond going with just a Wikipedia biopic, this just felt like the next safest option. Because I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of directions where you could have taken this, where it does get a lot more challenging and it does get a lot more interesting to engage with that conflict. Whereas I feel like we were just shown the conflict, but I don't think that either of those, like you're talking about, like this juxtaposition, and I feel like we can see that, but I don't know if like formally the film is doing enough to make us feel that in a way.
See, I would argue that it makes us feel that in the smaller moments where it really does. The film has a surprising ability to sort of, take a breath, lean back, hold back. It doesn't need to go big all the time. And it's in those intimate moments where we get the performances, where I think the performances really shine through, and we get to see this connection between Mulligan and Cooper, and how Bernstein's talent affected both of them on a very personal level. I feel like we do really get a good understanding of the psychologies of both characters.
I mean, I think my favorite sequence of the film was on a Thanksgiving Day when they were arguing in their room. Like, I think
that's a magnificent sequence.
I think that is where the film is at its best.
Yeah, whereas I would argue you don't get that without the chamber sequence. You don't get that.
But I think that you can. I feel like the chamber, like all of the conducting stuff, was like pretty menial and unimportant. I didn't think that provided that much to the film thematically. And obviously, like, I'm not going to say, like, it wasn't necessary. No, every scene is necessary to a film because it's part of a film. No scene is unnecessary to a film. Like, I'm not going to get into those arguments. Like, it's necessary to the movie because it's in the movie. I just don't know how much it provided to the film thematically, unless we were going to look at it purely through Carey Mulligan's perspective. But I feel like so much of this film also wants to be from Bernstein's perspective, and I feel like you can't have those moments hold as much meaning if you're also trying to hold it in Bernstein's perspective. And I feel like that's where the film gets muddy as far as what it's really trying to do, and where I feel like it's trying to do too many things to where it ends up not doing all that much. I feel like with a story with this scope, it's a lot harder to try to take multiple perspectives. Like, I feel like you need some sort of through line, or at least I feel like you need a director who can handle that scope with that many different perspectives. And I'm not sure if Bradley Cooper's there yet. But
right, I would argue some of it though comes from this sort of jostling for perspective and jostling for attention in the narrative. I think that allows both sort of performances to really feel like they're trying to get the attention of the film in a way, and it's about this. So the Carey Mulligan does in parts get forgotten about to an extent, and you do get transfixed by Cooper and Bernstein's conducting whatever in the bigger moments, but yet it always brings it back to it, and I don't think those perspectives are lost. I guess, and I can see where the argument's coming from, that potentially the bigger moments don't add much to necessarily the thematic output of what the film's trying to do, because I do think most of what the film was trying to do is in the relationship and the marriage between
I feel like that's where it's the most interesting, and I wish we would have just focused on that, because like
but I think we need elements for those elements to really work. I don't think as someone who doesn't know much about Bernstein going in, I don't think I would have felt it to the same extent. I don't think I would have.
Did we learn all that much about Bernstein? Like, I feel like we didn't. Like, you're talking about, like, we need the context of like who Bernstein was.
And not even the context, just the feeling that this man is a star, that this man is a.
Did we get that though?
I think we did through the conducting sequence.
I never felt
through the bigger moments when we can see Cooper just go all out, going really expressive. I think those elements when we did find that.
I didn't feel like we got that at all, really. And maybe that's just where we differ. I just, you felt it, I didn't, which is just sometimes what it comes down to with the film. I didn't feel that, and I feel like I don't know. I didn't care all that much about delving into when it was working from the perspective of Bernstein, because I just think that that's largely uninteresting. And that's a story that I feel like we've seen plenty of times before. And I think all of the best moments were when the film was working kind of on this, like, the complexities of like Carey Mulligan's feeling towards this. And I think that the film functions better and does more with what it's trying to say, or at least what I think it's trying to say about fame and identity and, all this stuff. Like, I think if we just look at it through Carey Mulligan, I feel like we get there, and the film can operate on a much more complex level. Whereas with what we got, it felt like it spread itself too thin, and it never really got past the surface level with either idea, and left me wanting it to do more.
Right. I guess then we have sort of similar ideas, because I would also agree that the best moments do come from, as you say, those sorts of sequences like them at the hotel,
Sure.
etc., etc. Whereas I just think the other elements enhance those sort of
Right.
standout moments, whereas you think they sort of take
Yeah.
away from them a bit. So I guess that's just where the intrinsic divide for our takes on
sure.
this film come from.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, we haven't really, I feel like we haven't talked about the technical side of things enough here. Like,
It's genius.
oh my God, yes, Jesus Christ, the cinematography, get that.
Matthew Libatique.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a man of influence. You give me 4x3, you give me, do what you like. Do what you like. And the editing as well, to construct the narrative that is so vast, is so complex, and construct it in a way that makes sense and feels like stuff we're seeing links to the next scene. Like every scene flows. It had a real nice pace to it. It's not this sort of, it's the dry Oscar bait type drama that I was even I was pitchy expecting going in. It is something a bit more snappy. It does have a pace to it, which I really appreciated. And I think a lot of that is due to the editing.
For sure.
Less so the screenplay.
I mean, yeah, I like it's crafted like incredibly well. I mean, I think even like the costumes and production design are being overlooked, because that's also like just brilliant work. I mean, obviously the makeup, transformative, all the things, right? The sound design, also fantastic. I just, again, I think it's all crafted really well. I don't know if the scope of how it's crafted, I feel like that kind of took away from what it was going for thematically, in a lot of places, to where it even felt like too showy in the moments where it was supposed to be quiet. Like just in like how the composition was used, like it felt really, really strange with what, I know, kind of mixed with what he was trying to do and say with certain shot compositions. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with that, just because I think in the moments he does go very bold, very showy in the crafts with some scenes, and I think that intrinsically means that the quieter moments get more emphasis, that we do sort of recognize the difference in scope.
Well, no, I'm saying like even in the quiet moments, it feels like it was doing too much. Like I think about one where
whereas I'm saying, but if you put them in terms of the scenes that they're put against, I think that is, I think that problem, for me at least, was negated by the fact that we did get such bold stuff, such showy stuff, and to anything would have felt like a step down.
But then again, it just feels mixed about like what perspective we're taking, and then what thematic path it's going down at the time. Like it didn't feel consistent with how it was constructed, I guess, to really, I guess, fully get there thematically, if that makes sense. Like I don't know. I would have to rewatch it and like take notes. But I feel like the manner in which it was constructed, it felt like it was kind of doing the same thing for the most part throughout. Whereas thematically it was trying to do different things, and the performances were trying to do different things. And I don't feel like it marries itself that well. But
interesting.
Regardless,
I disagree, but
it's crafted beautifully, regardless of how I think it's working. Like, I mean, Matthew Libatique, like, get that man an Oscar. Like, genius work. So yeah. And again, I don't want to come off like I'm like too negative. Like I still am relatively positive on the film. Like I still enjoyed a lot about it. I still liked what it was going for thematically. It's just more of a frustration where I wish it. I feel like it didn't fully get there, but I liked what it was going for. So I guess it's just more of a frustration that it didn't fully get there, because I was really appreciating what Cooper was, I think, trying to do.
Yeah, and I also don't want to come across like this film has no flaws. I think the dialogue in some
Is
scenes,
rough.
from scene,
It's
can
rough.
be a little rough. I think the screenplay is definitely this film's weakest element. But you know, those problems I think were negated with just the amount of spectacle that we were given,
Sure.
and the way the spectacle.
I think that
just
might also be
enhanced
why
the
I
characters.
didn't care for Bradley's performance as much, because I think Carey
Maybe
does
I think
I think Carey does a much better job at covering up the poor dialogue than Bradley does.
and I think the dialogue given to Carey is better
It's
because
significantly better.
because it's an easier character in many ways to explore than one that has such a big presence culturally, etc., etc.
Sure.
It's easier to explore someone like this.
Yeah, I think, and that's where like I prefer Carey's performance, but I also like respect Bradley's a lot. Like I think he had the tougher task, and I don't think he fully got there. Whereas I think Carey maybe had the easier task, but I think she really did get there with what she was trying to do.
Well, I guess I'd also just say that I think they both worked really well together. They really did sell me on the chemistry, and they really did sell me that these were two people that were very in love.
I didn't feel the chemistry at all.
For the chemistry,
I didn't feel it at all. Sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, disagree there. But I think both of them,
I only see chemistry when it's gay characters, okay?
Right.
We do.
Sure. I feel like we're afforded enough time and space and breathing room with them that I think the chemistry was able to be developed.
Sure. And I don't know. I don't feel like I'm articulating myself the best with this film, because I do feel like I need to rewatch to fully really understand why things didn't work for me. Like I know that like it didn't feel like the best way I can say it is just it didn't feel like it got there for me. And I think I have somewhat of an idea of why it didn't get there. But I don't know if I can fully articulate yet what particularly felt off to me, I guess. But I don't know. It felt like parts of a whole, like a bunch of really, really great puzzle pieces. But like if you imagine like a jigsaw puzzle, but like not all of the pieces were necessary, like the connecting parts weren't all in the right place. So it's like you can lay it out still how it's supposed to look, and you can see, you know, what it was supposed to be and how nice the thing was and how like, you know, great and beautiful that thing was. But then there's like these little gaps where like the pieces don't necessarily fit together. And like I just wish I could shove it together into it so we could make that perfect picture. But it like they aren't compatible, all of these little pieces. And it's frustrating that like it can't turn into that picture for me, because I want it to turn into that picture, but I can't.
I see.
It's just
well, I guess to use your allegory, I wouldn't want to see any of those pieces taken out. I think they do sort of conjunct together, and I think, you know, by taking out elements and by stripping it back even further, we'd lose a lot of what made the other.
And not even I think that pieces of the film should be removed. I feel like they would have been better.
But I feel through stripping it back, you would inherently be removing.
Well, I mean, like I feel like it would be better served if it took. I think focused purely on Carey Mulligan, who I just think had the far more interesting character. I guess like Bradley had like the bigger transformation and everything like that, but I just think that Carey Mulligan's character and like her personal conflicts and stuff, like at least with how they were explored in the film, I don't feel like I got that much as far as like the complexity and conflicts within the Leonard Bernstein, whereas I feel like I got so much internal conflict and drama within Carey Mulligan's performance and work. And I feel like if you delve deeper into Felicia and how she sees the situation, I feel like you get to a thematic thesis in a way on Bernstein in a much stronger way than if you focused on Bernstein. I think that is a far stronger route to take to get to the same thesis. And it was just, I don't know, it felt off every time that we went to Bernstein, because it felt like every scene that we were doing with that could have been more interesting explored, taken from the other perspective.
And I think this just really comes down to, again, the Cooper's role in the film. Like, if you don't like the film, it's because you're not a fan of Cooper direction. And even
I mean, this is how I have it right here.
Yeah, if you don't quite gel with Cooper's performance, I can see why all of those elements wouldn't work for you. I mean, however, as someone who did, I think they just aid everything that's going on. As someone who really just fell in love with Cooper here, really just felt, I was blown away by how good. Like, I expected Cooper to be good. I didn't ever expect him to be bad going into the film, but I was blown away by just how, you know, outstanding he was.
And I mean, and that's like the same thing with The Star Is Born, right? With The Star Is Born, I didn't really gel with what Cooper was doing. His performance didn't really work for me. I didn't find his character that interesting. I thought what Lady Gaga was brilliant. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was where all of the most interesting stuff in the film and all of the most conflict and everything like that. That's where the most interesting parts of A Star Is Born came from. And I wish we would have gotten more of that. And I feel similarly with this one.
Yeah,
So
I just think Cooper's
basically,
performances have such an ability to capture both these bigger moments, capture these big expressive actions, and capture the smaller moments. And I just think he is able to balance it really very well and create something very human at the end of the day.
And it really just comes down to the hyper subjective. Did you like the performance or not? And that's where I think a lot of this comes down to. I mean, basically for me, Bradley Cooper just needs to make a movie with like just a female lead, and I'll probably love it. With him not in it, like because obviously I've liked I've liked that piece of it. So so I know I feel similarly to this one as I do feel with The Star Is Born, where like there's so much there that I love and that I want to love the entire thing, and there's just these pieces that don't really connect for me. But yeah, I don't know. What are you feeling as far as a rating?
I would be feeling an 8. I'd be feeling a very strong 8, but an 8 indeed. I do think the dialogue is a big problem when you are trying to sell some of these moments, and it is better when it's silent, which it's very clear that it's better when it strips back the talking aspects of it. So there
which
is
why I think it would be working better as a film, just as a whole. That's in the stripped back bits.
Whereas I don't think you need to strip back the performances in the direction. I think to achieve the same effect in my eyes.
Sure. I wonder if that's also why the chemistry didn't necessarily work for me. It's just because of how rough the dialogue was. Like,
maybe
I wonder if that part kind of pulled me out.
Yeah, whereas I just think, because I don't think it came through from the screenplay. I think the chemistry came through from the performances.
So, but then if also one of the performances isn't working as much for me, like I feel like if the dialogue was better, I maybe could have forgiven it. So maybe. Interesting. I think it's also like I like to get a little breaking the fourth wall here. I will say, like, I'm figuring out my thoughts on this while talking about it, and that's what everybody I think should do. Once you watch a film, your opinion is going to change the more you think about it, and the more you engage with it, and the more you talk about it. And you shouldn't feel like you have to stick with an opinion just because it was the opinion that you initially had, or it's an opinion that you had before. Like, your opinion is going to constantly evolve. Like, my opinion is going to be evolving, and I'm going to be learning more about my relationship with each film the more I talk about it in one of these reviews. And I think the same goes for you, right?
Yes.
You discover more things about, like, when you watch a film, you build like a relationship with it in a way, and it's just like you have to work through all these different things about how you feel about it and everything like that. And I think just the more you attempt to articulate it, the more you're going to learn about it. So I'm just learning more about my relationship with the film as we talk about it. So yeah, I know I'm feeling a 6 with it. I lean positive. As I say, there's a lot that I like. Jesus, fuck voice crack. There's a lot that I like. But there's just these pieces that hold it back, I think, for making it really, really hit for me.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like, even you, as you say, who had a lot of problem with it, did lean positive. I think most people will end up leaning positive on it just because it paints such an expansive thing. There are so many pieces at play. There will inevitably be something that you can find within the film. I don't think anyone's really going to flat out hate it.
No, and it's a very warm film. Like, it's I was expecting it to be far colder, to be honest, but it's a very inviting film.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is.
It is a bit impressive considering like how large in scope it gets, that it is still it does still remain like warm and inviting in tone. Which is nice. So yeah. I guess to talk about awards briefly, it's obviously getting Best Picture. Bradley might get in for Best Director, but I'm not feeling that. Actress and actor lock for the nominations. Bradley will probably win because he really wants it. I don't think he should win, but he wants it really, really bad.
I can see why a performance like this would win. I really can. He's doing everything. He is doing literally everything.
The makeup, the screaming, the crying, the big moment. Yeah, he's doing everything. And it's also going to win makeup as well because transformative picture.
Of course.
Screenplay, it's on the outside. There's a small chance, but I think that it will probably miss out, and I would say deservedly so, missing out.
I mean, we'll see. I think that's a case of if they're really seeming to like it, then
it could take out May, December.
It could take out like May, December. Yes.
Or Anatomy. Oh my God.
Or Anatomy. one of those things. But
yeah,
I mean, I think we'll just have to wait to see what industry take
sure.
of the screenplay.
Because
Because I
like it
don't
isn't
think
doing
this was
as
never
well
going to
with
be a
critics,
critics thing, but it
but
never was.
it's doing well enough. It's doing well
Exactly.
enough with critics, and industry will only like it more. Like people are concerned about Carey Mulligan. Like she's getting in, guys. She's getting in.
She's getting in enough place,
I
yeah.
don't think
And
she's gonna
after
win.
watching the film, it's so weird. That would be really
It would be
strange to
really weird
have
if she missed because, like, in a way, again, it feels like it's partially her film. They really are co-leads.
Yeah, for sure.
And like again, I would have liked if it was even more of her film. But yeah, as far as crafts, cinematography, obviously it'll probably lose to Oppenheimer, but like it deservedly still getting a nomination. Editing, absolutely getting in. Production design, I think it's happening. Like I have it in for production design and costumes, which I don't think most people do, but production design like normally pairs with cinematography. I think the production design is great here. Same thing with the costumes. I think the costumes are great. Like, and I think it like absolutely can get in.
And these are also categories, let's not forget that the color purple is slipping out of. So
yeah, and I don't have color purple in them anywhere. I mean, I have the same. I think I have the same group for production design and costumes, which is I think the group that everybody should have, if I'm being honest. Barbie, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Maestro. That's just my 5 for both costumes and production design. And that could also be the 5, unironically, for editing and cinematography. I don't think that they're going to do the same 5 films for all 4 categories, but like reasonably, it could be those same 5 for all 4. I don't know if Barbie will get cinematography, but like still, you're going to see these 5 films all over the place in text.
For sure.
Also sound nomination, I think.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of box ticking this year in terms of nominations in text. I feel like there is stuff that they could do, like they could double up Saltburn with cinematography and production design. Would honestly be deserving in my book, but will they, or will they just go with safer stuff?
It's easier to just go Maestro and Barbie, right?
It's box tic. So we'll see. But all the text, a lot of the text you mentioned are feel fairly safe.
And would be deserving. Like even with my mixed feelings on the film, like come on, like you'd be insane to say that this doesn't deserve like cinematography. Like
for sure.
Yeah. But those are our thoughts on Maestro. Thank you everybody for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. But yeah, plenty more reviews. We're going to be reviewing. I mean, there's probably be like 10, 15 reviews on this channel over the next couple of weeks. Lots of shit. So stay tuned for that. And then we're in a bit of a lull for award stuff, and then I'll pick right back up in January. Golden Globes are in like 2 weeks. So yeah, we'll be filling that time with reviews and then right back into it. And also we have our end of the year lists to look forward to, which will be very, very fun, catching up rapidly on a lot of stuff for that. But thank you everybody for watching. Till next time, stay safe.